For years, audiences across America have watched the Plath family navigate life in a way that feels almost frozen in time. A large, conservative household raising 9 children with strict rules, limited exposure to modern culture, and a deeply traditional worldview. Cameras first introduced the nation to this family through TLC's reality series Welcome to Plathville, and from the moment it premiered, viewers were divided. Some saw a story about strong family values and faith. Others saw the painful growing pains of young adults trying to break free from a world that felt impossibly restrictive. Now, as a new season begins to take shape, the spotlight returns to a family that has already endured emotional confrontations, fractured relationships, and dramatic personal transformations. Because behind the quiet farmland of rural Georgia, behind the smiles on camera, behind the carefully controlled lifestyle that once defined the Plath household, something much deeper has been unfolding. Relationships that once appeared unbreakable have been strained. Children who grew up under strict rules are now stepping into independence. And parents who believed they had built a perfectly protected world are facing a reality that no amount of control could prevent. This first look at the new series is not just about another season of reality television. It's about a family standing at a crossroads. Old beliefs are colliding with new identities. Loyalty is being tested. And for the first time, the future of the Plath family itself may be uncertain. Tonight, we're taking a deep dive into what this new chapter of Welcome to Plathville could reveal: the history, the conflicts, the emotional stakes, and the powerful personal stories that have turned this small Georgia family into one of reality TV's most talked about households. Because what happens next in Plathville might change everything. When Welcome to Plathville first premiered on TLC in 2019, many viewers were immediately struck by how different the Plath family appeared compared with typical American households portrayed on television. At the center of the story were parents Kim and Barry Plath, raising their large family on a rural farm in Georgia. Their lifestyle was intentionally designed to be separate from what they believed were negative influences of mainstream culture. According to interviews and early episodes of the show, the Plath children were raised with strict limitations on television, internet access, popular music, and many elements of modern media that most American families take for granted. For Kim and Barry, these decisions were rooted in deeply held religious beliefs and a desire to protect their children from what they viewed as harmful aspects of contemporary society. They emphasized homeschooling, family activities, and faith-centered values as the foundation of their parenting philosophy. At first glance, the family appeared united under this lifestyle. The children, many of them musically talented, often performed together, sang together, and worked together on the family property. Their blonde hair, soft-spoken demeanor, and strong family bonds created a visual image that felt almost like a throwback to a simpler era. But beneath that image, tensions were quietly growing. As the older Plath children began reaching adulthood, the sheltered world they had grown up in started to collide with their curiosity about the outside world. And that's where the real story of Welcome to Plathville began. Among the first major storylines that drew national attention were the experiences of the oldest Plath children, particularly Ethan, Micah, and Moriah. Each of them, in different ways, began questioning the strict lifestyle they had been raised under. For Ethan Plath, the turning point came when he married Lydia Plath, a photographer who had grown up in a similarly conservative religious environment, but had begun distancing herself from those traditions as she entered adulthood. Their marriage created immediate tension within the family. Olivia's worldview and independence clashed with the strict expectations that Kim and Barry had for their children. Over time, disagreements escalated into highly emotional confrontations that were captured on camera. These conflicts weren't simply arguments between in-laws. They represented a deeper philosophical divide between a generation that believed in protecting children through strict control and a younger generation that believed personal growth required freedom and exploration. As Ethan struggled to balance loyalty to his parents with his commitment to his wife, viewers watched a deeply personal family conflict unfold. While Ethan's storyline often centered around marriage and family loyalty, his sister Moriah Plath became known to audiences as one of the most outspoken voices in the family. From the earliest seasons, Moriah openly expressed frustration with the strict environment she had grown up in. She spoke candidly about feeling isolated during her teenage years and wanting to experience the world outside the boundaries set by her parents. Music became her outlet. Her performances, songwriting, and artistic identity began shaping a new path for her life, one that often stood in direct contrast with the traditional expectations she had been raised with. For viewers across the United States, Moriah's story resonated because it reflected a universal experience, the tension between family values and personal identity. Her journey was not simply about rebellion. It was about self-discovery. And as the show progressed, audiences watched her move out, pursue her own career, and attempt to build relationships with her siblings while navigating complicated feelings toward her parents. Another central figure in the evolving story of the Plath family has been Micah Plath, whose life path took an entirely different direction. Micah eventually pursued a career in modeling, moving away from the rural Georgia environment where he had been raised. For someone who had grown up with limited exposure to mainstream culture, entering the fashion and entertainment industry represented a dramatic shift. His move symbolized something larger happening within the Plath family. The children were not simply questioning the lifestyle they had been raised with. They were actively building entirely new lives outside of it. And as each sibling took different paths, the once tightly connected household began to experience emotional distance. As seasons progressed, Welcome to Plathville evolved from a simple portrait of an unconventional family into something much more complex. The show became a deeply emotional exploration of generational conflict, parents struggling to maintain their values, children trying to establish independence, siblings attempting to stay connected despite radically different life choices. For many viewers, the emotional authenticity of these struggles was what kept them watching. Unlike some reality shows that focus primarily on dramatic moments or manufactured conflicts, the Plath family's challenges often felt raw and personal. Conversations were deeply emotional, and the consequences of those disagreements carried real weight. Perhaps the most fascinating aspect of Welcome to Plathville has been how dramatically the family dynamic has evolved since the series began. In early seasons, the Plath household appeared structured around strict unity and shared beliefs. But as time passed, that structure began to shift. Some children moved away. Others pursued careers that would have been unimaginable during their childhoods. Relationships between family members changed, and the once clearly defined boundaries of the Plath lifestyle began to blur. By the time later seasons aired, viewers were watching a family in transition, not completely broken, but no longer the same. Now, as audiences get their first glimpse of the upcoming chapter of Welcome to Plathville, the stakes feel higher than ever. Because the question facing the Plath family is no longer simply about rules or lifestyle choices. It's about identity. Who are they as individuals? Who are they as a family? And can those two things still coexist? The new season arrives at a moment when many of the original conflicts remain unresolved. Relationships are still healing. Trust is still fragile. And the children who once lived under their parents' strict guidance are now adults navigating their own complicated futures. For longtime fans of the show, this new chapter isn't just another season. It's a continuation of a story that has unfolded over years, a story about faith, family, independence, and the difficult process of growing up in front of millions of viewers. And if early glimpses of the new series are any indication, the next phase of the Plath family journey could be the most revealing yet. The first glimpses of the new chapter of Welcome to Plathville don't arrive quietly. Instead, they arrive with a tone that longtime viewers immediately recognize. Emotional tension simmering just beneath the surface, conversations that feel unfinished, and a family that still seems to be figuring out what life looks like after years of upheaval. When the earliest promotional footage and previews for the new season began circulating, fans of the series noticed something almost instantly. The tone felt different from the early seasons. Gone was the simple portrait of a tightly controlled household where nearly every aspect of life revolved around the parents' rules. Instead, the footage hinted at a far more complicated reality, a family whose members now live separate lives, pursue separate goals, and sometimes struggle to find common ground. In earlier seasons, much of the narrative centered on the clash between the older Plath children and their parents' strict upbringing. But in the first look at the new series, that conflict appears to have evolved into something deeper. The central question now is no longer just about rules. It's about relationships. The previews show siblings navigating adulthood in very different ways. Some remain closely tied to their roots, while others have fully embraced life outside the world they were raised in. And perhaps most notably, the dynamic between the parents themselves appears to have undergone significant change, something that viewers began noticing in previous seasons. For longtime fans, the most striking element of the new footage is the sense that the Plath family is still in transition. The home that once functioned as the center of everything is no longer the gravitational force holding everyone together. Instead, the children who once lived under that roof are now scattered across different cities, careers, and personal journeys. The new season appears poised to explore what happens next when the original structure of a family begins to shift. Do you understand why this new season carries so much emotional weight? It's important to look at how the roles of Kim and Barry Plath have changed over the course of the series. When viewers first met them, the couple presented a unified front. Their parenting philosophy was clear and consistent. They believed strongly in raising their children away from mainstream culture, emphasizing faith, music, and family life above all else. In interviews and early episodes, they spoke about wanting to protect their children from what they perceived as negative outside influences. Television, social media, and many elements of modern entertainment were largely absent from the household. Even certain foods, like soda or sugary snacks, were restricted in ways that many viewers found surprising. For Kim and Barry, this structure wasn't meant to be punitive. They framed it as a deliberate attempt to build a close-knit family environment where the children could grow up with strong moral values. But as the show progressed, the cracks in that structure began to appear. The older children started questioning the system they had grown up under. Conversations that once happened privately inside the family were suddenly unfolding on national television, and the emotional toll of those disagreements became increasingly visible. By the later seasons, viewers witnessed something that few expected when the show first began: significant changes within the Plath parents' own relationship and personal outlooks. Kim Plath, in particular, began speaking openly about her own feelings and struggles. In episodes that aired in more recent seasons, she reflected on the pressures of raising a large family and the challenges of maintaining such a strict lifestyle over many years. Those reflections suggested that even the parents who had created the Plath family's unique environment were beginning to reconsider aspects of it. For audiences watching at home, this was one of the most unexpected developments in the entire series. The very people who had once enforced the rules were now navigating their own personal transitions. While the parents' journey remains an important part of the story, the new season's first look makes one thing clear: the lives of the Plath children have expanded far beyond the boundaries of their childhood home. Each sibling now represents a different version of what life after Plathville might look like. Some have remained close to the rural lifestyle they grew up with. Others have ventured into careers and environments that would have been almost unimaginable during their early years. This diversity of experiences creates one of the most compelling aspects of the show. Instead of following a single narrative path, Welcome to Plathville now explores multiple perspectives on family, independence, and identity. For example, viewers have watched as some siblings pursued careers in music and creative arts, building identities that allow them to express parts of themselves that were once suppressed. Others have explored opportunities in modeling, travel, and entrepreneurship. But independence does not erase family ties. And one of the emotional through-lines hinted at in the new season's preview is the question of whether those ties can remain strong despite such different life choices. Conversations between siblings often reveal a complicated mix of loyalty, frustration, love, and unresolved history. Growing up in a tightly controlled environment created a shared bond among the Plath children. Yet their experiences after leaving home have not been the same. That divergence is where many of the show's most powerful moments occur. One of the reasons Welcome to Plathville has maintained a dedicated audience over the years is its willingness to show relationships in all their complexity. The show does not present the Plath family as either heroes or villains. Instead, it allows viewers to witness the messy, emotional reality of a family trying to adapt to change. The relationship between siblings, for instance, often reflects both deep love and deep disagreement. Some of the older children have openly supported one another's independence, while others have expressed concerns about how far certain family members have moved away from the values they grew up with. These conversations are rarely simple. They often involve long histories, shared childhood experiences, and emotional wounds that cannot be resolved overnight. In the first look at the new season, there are hints that some of these relationships may be entering new phases. Certain siblings appear to be reconnecting after periods of distance. Others seem to be navigating fresh challenges as their personal lives evolve. For viewers who have followed the family's journey from the beginning, these developments carry a sense of emotional continuity. The story didn't end when the children moved out of the family home. In many ways, it only began there. Another major theme that continues to shape the Plath family story is the role of faith and personal values. Religion was a foundational element of the household in which the children were raised. It influenced everything from daily routines to long-term life choices. But as the siblings entered adulthood, they began interpreting those beliefs in different ways. Some remained deeply committed to the traditions they were taught as children. Others started redefining what faith meant to them on a personal level. This variation is something many American families can relate to. Across the country, younger generations often reinterpret the cultural and religious traditions passed down by their parents. Sometimes those reinterpretations strengthen family bonds. Other times they create tension. The Plath family story provides a particularly visible example of that generational shift. And the new season appears ready to continue exploring how those beliefs intersect with modern life. Reality television is filled with families who briefly capture the public's attention before fading into the background of entertainment history. But Welcome to Plathville has maintained a unique place in the reality TV landscape. Part of the reason is authenticity. While editing and storytelling are always part of reality television production, the emotional conflicts shown on the series often feel deeply personal and unscripted. Viewers aren't simply watching dramatic moments for entertainment. They're watching a family navigate real-life transitions that many people experience in their own households. The themes explored in the show, independence, parental expectations, sibling loyalty, identity, are universal. Even viewers who have never lived on a farm in rural Georgia can see aspects of their own family dynamics reflected in the Plath story. That relatability is what keeps audiences invested. Because at its core, the show is not just about one family. It's about the complicated process of growing up, letting go, and figuring out who you are when the world you were raised in begins to change. The first look at the new season suggests that Welcome to Plathville is entering a different era. The early years focused heavily on the tension between strict parenting and rebellious adulthood, but now the story appears to be shifting towards something more reflective. What happens after the rebellion? What happens after the children leave home? What happens when the parents themselves start reevaluating the choices they made? These are the questions that the upcoming season seems ready to explore. And for viewers who have followed the Plath family since the beginning, those questions carry enormous emotional significance. Because the future of the family and the relationships within it is still being written.